Hello, y'all. So, if I've not met you yet, I'm Pam Hughes. I am Director of Communications for the Horizon Texas Conference, and I am really excited about what we're going to get to share today. In case you don't know what you signed up for, this is social media strategy, and we have a fantastic panel of all women, actually, who are making great social media strategy decisions for some of our churches across the Horizon Texas Conference. We think this is really important. This is part of how we tell our story in a digital age. So I was joking, it's easy to sometimes be a little bit dismissive of it's Facebook. It's all kind of make believe at the end of the day. But it is important. This is where we are engaging with our church members and also with folks who are not yet in our churches or in any churches. And so it is important and something that we should do well when it comes to telling our story. With that, I would love to turn it over to our three panelists to just kick us off by introducing yourselves and where you are, what your ministry looks like, and we will start here with Lisa Blake.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name's Lisa Blake. Gosh, how did I get in this area of social media? My college degree is in architecture. And after I graduated from college in the mid 90s, I moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I worked for an architecture firm, designing and remodeling Randall's, Tom Thumb, and Whole Foods grocery stores in that area, all the way from Mesquite to Weatherford. If you went to any of those stores in the late 90s, I might have been the one to design that store. Um, then I switched to doing more store graphics and really kind of fell in love with that more than the structure itself. Went into working for an advertising agency, and then my husband got transferred to the Georgetown area. So had kids, and I started working part-time at First United Methodist Georgetown in 2010 as the part-time graphic designer, and I have been there ever since, kind of working my way up the communications ladder, and I am now the media director there. So, yeah.
Very good. Paige, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Paige and Paige Hughes, and I work at First United Methodist Church in Richardson. And I graduated with a degree in communications with a focus in PR. And post-graduation around 2018, 2019, just before COVID, actually. So timing was perfect that I decided to work independently with clients, did all sorts of communications, social media, newsletters, etc. And kept that going for a few years. And then I also ran my own personal pages. I did makeup for a while, and then I started running a Richardson, City of Richardson kind of focused, community uplifting social media page as well. And the way that I fell into my work here is that one of our pastors, Allison, actually DM'd me on my Richardson Instagram page and said, "Hey, we have an opening for a part-time communications associate. And I kind of feel like he might be a unique fit to the bill." So that's how that part-time role opened up. And that was in 2024, maybe at the beginning. So I've been here a little over a year. And then this summer is when I went full-time communications, and I do not just social media, I do everything under the communications umbrella now.
Very good. And Leanne, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Leanne Johnston, and I have served in ministry for about 25 years, mostly in youth ministry, young adult ministry from smaller churches, larger churches. I worked at the Legacy Central Texas Conference office doing youth and young adult ministry. Um, and all of those roles, I utilized communication, whether that was communicating with students or their parents, and then excuse me, transitioned into a larger church doing communication, bulletin design, graphic design, and kind of learned things as I went. My degrees are in religion and theology. I graduated from Perkins in 2009. So have a much more scrappy communications background, but love it. And now serve at Community United Methodist Church of Crum, where my husband is the pastor. It is a new church start that we are building together, and took over communications. I say as a volunteer, but when you're a spouse, it's not as much volunteer. But took it over because I enjoyed it, and I knew that my husband needed to spread his time in other areas. And the church now has started to pay me a small bit. So I'm like super part-time, but I do all of the communications for our little church, design, t-shirts, whatever it is, but really have a heart for communicating with our folks and then the community at large. So I'm really honored to be here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you each for being with us today. What this structure looks like, because we know one size definitely doesn't fit all. So we're hoping that by hearing how this looks in a few different places, we can each, take some ideas that'll work for us. So before we jump into questions, is there any background, just sort of your philosophy on how you do social in your context that you would want to share with the group? I know a lot of times there's question of, is it documenting or staging? What's, the storytelling mix? If you just kind of have an overarching, here's our thought behind social.
Yeah, for us, we have a very wide demographic. We have tons of young families. We have lots of retirees. We have quite a few 3- and 4-generation families all attending together. So some of them are on Facebook, some of them are on Instagram, some of them only look at the stories, some of them only read the paper newsletter. So we kind of have to paint a very broad brush with what we publicize. So each of my posts or newsletter stories or something is really kind of targeting the audience that is on that particular platform. And a lot of times it's all of the platforms at once, depending on what it is, but I'm just really mindful of who's reading it and where they're going to be reading it.
Yeah, I'd say mine is very similar to Lisa's. And in regards to planning that tailored content, I do plan out anchor content for series or events or campaigns, but I really try to leave space for documenting real moments as they happen. And that's often the best way to speak authentically to these tailored audiences on different platforms. So I do have a content calendar with pillared content that I can fall back on, but so much of the day-to-day is organic, truly, because you're listening to all those unique audience members.
A great reminder to listen.
Yeah.
I operate a lot the same way that you do, Paige, in having kind of batched content, questions, content from a sermon, things like that, events especially. But then I think what makes a smaller church, it's easy for us to be very nimble and kind of do things more on the fly. I do like to have things very scheduled, which then gives me the freedom to take a video of our folks serving burgers at the Denton Wesley, put a song behind it on Canva and post it in 30 minutes. And I think, that we don't have, excuse me, as a diverse community in terms we're building it. So we're kind of teaching our people where to go for information. And I think that makes things easier for us probably, because we just tell people this is where you find it. We don't have a paper bulletin. We don't have a paper newsletter. We send emails and we say we are very active on social media, and that's they have learned. So we don't get as many probably complaints as I have in previous jobs. I didn't know about it. When this is the only place you can find it, they figure it out pretty quick. And it's it's just also a smaller community. Crum is definitely smaller than Georgetown and Richardson for sure. And so I think that gives us a little bit more freedom, and we kind of know who our folks are. We do have a wide demographic, but not in terms of how they're consuming content, which I think makes it a little bit easier.
Very good. Yeah, definitely simplifies.
For sure.
Wonderful. Well, we all like to start with the end in mind. Who is that? Franklin Covey, Stephen Covey. So when you're thinking about social media, how are you defining success, and making sure that that aligns with your church's mission, not just with like social media metrics?
For us, defining success, like outside of the social media metrics, when people come to church and say, "Oh my gosh, that post was so funny,"
Mhm.
they saw something, they shared it, they're talking about it outside of the social media. To me, that's a success, getting people away from their computers, believe it or not.
Mhm.
Talking about things that are connected to the church in person. That's a success. Like we average about 40 or 50 likes and shares per post, which is not spectacular. But that's kind of our average. But to me, if you get a 40 like post and then they're talking about it and there's more than 40 people talking about it, that's much better.
Yeah, it's almost the exact same for me. I mean, metrics are like breadcrumbs, but it really looks like real connection. People taking the next steps, asking questions, showing up in person, or reaching out for prayer. And, the mission is really about spiritual growth and growing that online community to then hopefully transfer into in-person community. And I feel like social media really, whether a person engages with a post or not, it lowers the barrier of
Mhm.
entry for an individual to feel welcomed into a
Mhm.
community. Even if they just see the post and it resonates with their heart and we don't get that like or a comment,
Mhm.
you just, but when a post does metrically track well, then that, those eyes that may not be engaging, even more are seeing it and it's resonating with more people. So metrics are nice to indicate the eyes that are seeing it, but it's really about the growth within that can't necessarily be tracked by numbers until they physically are here or you
Mhm.
see them on an online worship metric.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I love metrics just in my life. And so I think it's important, especially Pam, like you were saying, like who even knows what's happening on Facebook? Like things are changing constantly. Y'all definitely have more experience than I do, but sometimes I feel like I'm like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like I have no idea. This might hit, it might not, who knows? And
Yeah.
metrics help me kind of hone. It doesn't change the like content or the heart of what I'm posting, but it may change the method.
Mhm.
We're pretty clear on our church is making disciples of Jesus Christ in the community and for the community. So I kind of run things through the filter of, is this in the community for the community? Is this showing who we are? And like you said, Paige, like lowering that barrier of entry. And so thinking about it as seed planting, and like we also in Crum, a United Methodist Church closed, and we came in and built a church in the same building. So uh, we had to get a new vision out into the community and say, like, we are not this old church without saying we're not this old church, and kind of
Mhm.
showing that story. And it takes a long time to do that, but just continually, and we do it a lot through photos and sharing photos. We're also the only Protestant mainline church in Crum. And by then the most progressive church, we've had female pastors. So in the previous iteration. And so that makes us unique in our context, and getting to show that and kind of say, this is who we are. We're a bit more casual. We have a lot of children. Things are sometimes chaotic, and sharing that story of who we are out in the community. I'm like, authenticity is so important because we don't want to like bait and switch. You
Mhm.
don't want people to think, oh, I thought y'all were really casual and I came and everyone's wearing suits. Like, kind of knowing who you are. And we're in a really unique position where we know who we are very clearly, and we get to say that out in social media, in the world, whatever that is.
That's great. I love the way you said that the metrics aren't going to change the substance, but they might help
Mhm.
you. They might change how you go
Figure
about
things
telling the
out.
story, but it's not changing what the heart of the story is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Very good. So all three of you mentioned, the biggest thing being the heart change or taking that next step.
Mhm.
Not to put y'all on the spot, but have there been any particular moments where you're like, we don't always get to see all the way back to it started on social media, but have you had any where you're like, that's why we're doing what we're doing?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. I've never really thought about it that way, but there is kind of yeah, there are some voices back there that say, I saw this on social media. My mom shared this with me on social media. Family members will come for Christmas or for Easter or something like that. We have people in the community that don't go to our church, but do follow our social media. So that's kind of one of our big things too, is that our pastor really wants to be known as the church that loves the community, whether they go to our church or not. So we do a lot of things where we're letting the community know who we are, what we stand for, what we believe, and that everybody in the community and beyond is loved. So yeah, our social media kind of is intended to reach more than just the congregation, if that's what you were asking.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Okay.
One unique one with us, since it's a bigger, very big church, is social media has obviously facilitated a lot of external connections, bringing people in. But one semi-recent notable instance, I did like a throwback post of pictures of our original campus, and then like progressions. I mean, decades back up till now. And in the comments, there were people commenting who were saying, my parents were on the building committee or my grandparents. And then there were people who were, you know, parts of the process that were older, and like all this intergenerational connection just in the comments of this throwback picture post. it,
Mhm.
it was really cool because one unique thing about running social media for a bigger congregation is that, yes, well, a lot of my focus is on, welcoming in the external community and growing our community. There are so many like people who just pass each other by and have no clue about each other's stories or how they may be connected. And so that's another facet of my job too, is just connecting people within the church.
Yeah.
This was the hardest question that you gave us, Pam, for me.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I did think of two things. One, this was several months ago. And so we were like just kind of getting our footing in terms of our social media presence. And we'd only been worshiping weekly for probably 6 months. And I was at a community event. I was putting together a balloon arch with some other folks. And someone said, "Is your that church the one I see on social media all the time?" And I was like, "Yes, it is. Thank you so much for noticing." And that felt like a breakthrough for me. I know that's not like the spiritual breakthrough that we are like really looking for, but it was a breakthrough for me where we are not the old church anymore. We are now our own thing, and you're seeing it on social media, and that it's not everything, but it's a lot of things. And it was a great connection that we had. We also just recently put up a little library in front of our church. We are right next to several schools in town. We don't have a whole lot of schools, and they're all like right around the church. So we have a lot of foot traffic after school of children. And so I'm like, we need a little library out here. And one of our folks made a little library, and we, dug a hole, put it out. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to post about this. It's going to be so great. And it was shared on one of the neighborhood group, in the community, shared. And I think similar, Lisa, what you were saying, like we want to be known as the church that cares about our community. And that means having books like readily available. It's not like all Bibles. I don't think there's any
Right.
Bibles in it, actually. It's just books. Like we just care about books. And so if we're known as the church in town that participates in the food pantry at another church and has a little library, like that is awesome. And so just continuing to share that. That was a great like celebration of seeing other people sharing it and commenting, and then checking to see like, oh, books are gone. I
Yeah,
need
that
to put more books in it. Like, oh, this is so exciting. So that was just a little recent thing that happened.
Excellent. Well, switching gears from kind of the big picture to the more granular, knowing who we've got on the webinar, would love to hear what your content planning process looks like. And at the same time that you're answering that, we did have a question in the chat about what platforms you're using. So that is something you may be able to answer while you're talking about what content planning looks like for you.
Okay, so in my office, I have a giant floor to ceiling calendar of the entire year that has squares just big enough for the small Post-it note. And I have Post-it notes for the whole year of like hard dates of when actual events are happening. And then I have a different color Post-it note for the social media post relevant to each of those things, and kind of scattered around other stuff like I know that the poinsettias are going to go on sale on November 17th of each year and that kind of thing. I leave about 1 or 2 spaces blank each week for relevant topics like a Taylor Swift album coming out. We have to be able to do the little turquoise with the orange lock and that kind of thing. Fit stuff in. The fact that it's on a Post-it note means I can move things around really easily, and be really flexible with the planning. We are on Facebook and Instagram exclusively. We used to be on Twitter and we are not anymore. We do have a pretty active YouTube page, but I don't know if that qualifies as social media. So that's kind of my planning process. As far as the way people in our church get things on our social media platform, we have a publication request form that people can submit. The other thing is that I invite people to come into my office to see this social media planner so that they aren't constantly emailing me saying, when is my post going to happen? Can you post about my men's barbecue every day for the next 2 weeks? That kind of thing, so that they can kind of see who is getting priority. I try to do a good cross section each week. Children's get something, the older people get something. Just kind of do as good of a broad brush and cross section as I can each week.
I sort of wish you were in your office so we could see.
Oh,
I was like, this sounds like a dream.
It's nice. I'll send you a picture, but my
Okay.
office is right next door to the prayer shawl group that meets at the same time, and they are chatty. So it was quieter at my house than it is in my office right now. Yeah, but I love it.
Yes. What about you, Paige? What does planning look like for you?
Well, I'm a big Post-it note fan too, because it's just every time you think you have something planned out, it changes, especially
Yes.
at a, you know,
Gotta
a
move it.
bigger church. So like I can't even really, I can look at the year super broadly, but truly I take it week by week, something month by month. And the way that I stay aware of when things are happening in different groups is we have shout forms, which is how people in different ministries can submit information about what's happening or things that they want publicized in any format in the church. So I live by those submitted shout forms. I put that info on my calendar and then I plan accordingly. And if it's, you know, a month out, then I can, you know, plan more future forward, but it just kind of depends on when people share the information about what's happening. And then I also have that pillar content that's more evergreen, like music, sermons, quotes, and ministry spotlights, volunteer testimonials. And I, again, you know, listen each week, each day to what's the highest need, because we may suddenly need more volunteers to read at the local schools. So I shift a post to that. So the calendar is ever changing, but I do keep one in Google Sheets for myself. And then it's a shareable link as well. So I can just easily modify that. And kind of like Lisa said, everyone can see if they want to, you know, who's being posted about when, if it's planned. But a lot of it truly is day to day, flying not by the seat of my pants per se, but it's very organic, because especially with such a big church, it seems like everything is constantly changing every day.
The
But yeah,
dance.
it is a dance, but there are some, you know, streamlined processes within that. Like I said, the shout
Mhm.
forms, and then people know, you know, the best ways to reach out to me are, you know, text or email. And if they have pictures that they want on social, to email. So there are processes within the organic creation as well.
Very good. And what about you, Leanne?
What platforms are you on, Paige? I'm
Oh,
curious.
yes. platforms. Facebook, well, because we are very multi-generational for sure. Facebook and Instagram, and then YouTube as well, which is run so wonderfully by our media team. But I often pull because they have very professional quality content that they create for the YouTube. I will clip some of that content and repurpose it for social because that is a huge part of how I'm able to maintain pillar content and other content is I pull in from other sources, especially within the church, like our YouTube channels creations, because especially like you, I'm sure when you're getting scrappy with content creation, it's work smarter, not harder. You want to repurpose a graphic that you made for a t-shirt into a social post, you can do that.
Definitely. I do have to work smarter, not harder. There are only so many hours in the day. I don't know how y'all do it. But I feel like even though we're obviously smaller and we don't have the processes in place, but it's very similar in terms of having the pillar content. We are also exclusively on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
That's where we are. And I, try and plan as much ahead because we're new. We haven't planned ahead. Like we don't have we may have like some big things in terms of the year, but it's a lot of like organic things that happen. Like, oh, you want to do this new thing? Okay, this is what we'll do. Or this community event is happening in a month. Fantastic. We're going to be a part of that. And so being flexible, I am not a like fly by the seat of my pants kind of person. And so having those big things in place really helps me. One thing that I think I learned about this from Johnny Brower. They did an AI podcast on the pod Strangely Warmed, where they talked about the sermon takes so much work and effort. And how do we repurpose that as much as we possibly can? And especially thinking in terms of like solo pastor kind of position. And so I get the sermon transcript usually by Thursday and then the sermon is preached that coming Sunday. And I'll take that and with the help of ChatGPT kind of formulate some posts that are thought-provoking, that take quotes from the sermon, not obviously direct quotes because those transcripts and the actual sermon might not be the same, but things that will be engaging. And I get those scheduled on Thursday for the upcoming week just to have the 3, 4, 5 boulders in place. And events, we utilize events on Facebook quite a bit. And think then will boost an event, especially like things that are more outward focused, because then Facebook does a lot of the work for you and puts it in front of your people over and over. And so things like that, where especially in a smaller community where we don't have people, I mean, we do have some people driving in from Denton, but we don't have a like wide range of folks driving from so far. We can kind of really focus in on just Crum. And so that's really how we've been. It does help a lot that obviously our people, we've got a vision board and things like that they have buy-in of what we're doing, but we don't have any staff, and I'm married to the pastor, and so there's a lot of autonomy that I can have that I don't take for granted, that I don't have to get approval from too many people to do things, and no one is submitting anything to me. So I just do kind of what I want to do, and thankfully it works out. And my whole family has just so much buy-in in the church that I think it's just a kind of unique situation that is working for now.
That's great. Yeah, very unique situation.
Super unique.
Well, are there any tools or apps, you've named a couple, but things that are making your workflow simpler?
Yeah, we use the Meta Business Suite for our social media posting, for planning out, and also for scheduling posts. The thing that I love most about the Meta, there's not a lot that I love about Meta, but the one thing that I do love is that it spoon feeds the algorithm right to me. It tells me exactly when our followers are most active each day. And that is not a lie. Like if I post something at 2 o'clock, it gets barely any traction. But if I post it after 7 o'clock, it does so much better. And I did not believe that for the longest time. And I posted when I actually thought that it would work best. It really does know.
All
Uh,
right.
so yeah, so we lean heavily on that. I lean really heavily on my Photoshop, um, in a way that our subscribers and our followers know that it's not real. And this would be a good time to pull up one of those, maybe the
Oh,
one
yes,
with the
yes.
pancakes. Okay,
Maybe.
so one of our best posts that we ever did was for Shrove Tuesday, explaining to our subscribers and followers what that actually is. And I photoshopped a picture of our senior pastor with the rock in his stack of pancakes. And this post, quote unquote, went viral with our congregation, which is still not a huge amount, but people really loved it because they recognized his face. They've never seen him with a tank top on, and they love seeing him with a giant stack of pancakes. I intentionally made it kind of crummy Photoshop just so they would know that this is not actually real. But they just love this kind of stuff.
That's so fun.
Yeah. So we
It's
were able
good
to
use of the Photoshop.
explain Ash Wednesday in a really fun and creative way, and then get some really good humor. And they really respond to that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
I also use Meta Business Suite. I don't love, no, I share the same feelings, but I do love it for insights. And I also use Canva a lot for just quick, consistent graphics, or if we have like recurring templates. It's also great because then I can build out templates because we have our main account and then we also have like sub accounts that ministries have started on their own or that existed when I came into the role, like for the Journey Youth Choir, for the youth ministry, for young adults. So it's helpful to have some sort of streamlined presence or visuals for me to have that shared Canva account where I can build out some templates that they can plug and play as desired because they are all wearing so many hats. They just want something easy that's
That's really brave
consistent.
to allow sharing. Like nobody touches my graphics. Like I do all of it.
Oh, it's at a point where I tried,
With,
controlling every little thing and you have to kind of
mhm.
let go and let God.
With a big
So
church, I imagine you've got to kind of
yeah,
have a team with it. Yeah.
right. So I use Canva for graphics. I've used for social media, I don't use Adobe as much, but I think it's because when I started doing social media content before coming here, even it was almost all on my phone. So I use
Mhm.
Canva. I use an app called InShot, not CapCut, because CapCut has come and gone, and um, InShot has been a very consistent, reliable, great tool. I use that for video editing. But truly, I've learned, especially when it comes to just communicating the heart of who you are, there is no perfect to use or best app per se. It's just, I always emphasize it doesn't have to be fancy to be effective, as long as you're listening, like we said at the very beginning.
Yeah.
I'm learning so many things, and also you guys are affirming me, and I love it. So thank you. I too use Meta, and I'm now going to start trusting the scheduled times that they give me because I have not done that, and I'm going to start.
Yeah.
I love the Meta calendar and
The planner.
like the planning view where you can see the calendar of like what's going on Instagram, what's going on Facebook. That is really helpful for me. And yeah, just like working smarter, not harder. Just have it all in one place. I do love the metrics
Mhm.
that it provides. I also love Canva. Um, I would prefer to design everything like in Illustrator and Photoshop, but there's not time for that. So Canva is like my go-to. Lisa, I will say I copied your style. We did a Star Wars series and I
Oh,
photoshopped Jared's face on Star
uh-huh.
Wars characters.
Yeah,
And that was our social media.
I
That
love
was
that.
fabulous. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, Canva, like you can do that would be my advice for like a church that is wondering what to do, like Canva and Meta, and that's all you need right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
You can do um captions on a video and post it as a reel. You can like all and in fact you can schedule posts through Canva. I have not done that as much because just putting it in Meta is easy. But and I also use ChatGPT to help, like, it is not writing our content, but it helps me in the creative process. Kind of like, here's Jared's sermon. What direction is he going? Or what are the themes? Or what are some questions that come up with this? And then that kind of gets me, or what is a good graphic? Give me some graphic suggestions for this or that. That's been helpful for me. But we do have a paid Canva account through the church, but everything else we do is free.
I was gonna say, I know Trey will drop it in the chat at some point, but this is a plug too. A month ago, our Lunch and Learn was on Canva for churches. So if you've not already, if you are working at a church, you can get Canva Pro for free through their nonprofits. It's his big soapbox that he wants to make sure every church knows. You can be using those tools. Um, Excellent. Well, I know at the top we chatted a little bit about community building being such an important part of what we're doing on social, couple different aspects. How are you all encouraging conversation and that sort of community building things beyond just like the post?
Yeah, one of the things when I took over our social media a couple of years ago, one of the things that I ditched was the static cartoons and ads and stuff. When people scroll through their own personal social media, the last thing they want to see is another ad. And so to
Mhm.
me, making sure that our social media wasn't just looking like more ads in people's feeds was really,
Mhm.
really important. Um, I intentionally include photos of people and places that people recognize so that it
Mhm.
does break up all of those ads that people seem to see in their feed. So 99% of the time, I'm trying to post a picture of someone or a place of someone or something that's going to happen, something that did happen. Um, to my surprise, one of the other things that we did was every time that a new person joins our church, I take a picture of them in worship, actually joining in that moment, and then I post it within the hour. Those are some of our best performing posts
Mhm.
because they are seeing a new face, and that comment section is just completely blowing up with everyone saying, "Welcome." And
Mhm.
that makes those initial connections so special. I was not expecting that at all. It is literally a person standing at the front of the church with the pastor and their name and what service they joined in. And those are some of our best posts almost every single week.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that last post concept. Oh my gosh. Well, mine, it's very, very similar again, so I won't repeat what Lisa said, but to tack on to that, when it comes to the content itself, I try to inspire some sort of, CTA,
Mhm.
where whether it's asking a question or just providing content that prompts some sort of engagement via comments or messages, just not treating it like a billboard, a bunch of ads, because no
Yeah.
one wants
Mhm.
to see. I rarely like to do just a flat graphic. I love pictures
Mhm.
and videos and things that, like you said, that people recognize. It's pretty much my philosophy is honestly exactly the same. I mean, people just they want to see, yeah, pictures and videos of other real people, and I, the wordsmithing in the caption is always important, like I said, to prompt that next step, that further engagement, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's really important what you said there. And just in case anyone didn't catch the acronym, we love acronyms. CTA
Yeah.
is your call to action. So don't be afraid to tell people what you want them to do with that social post.
Yeah.
And then what about you, Leanne, your community building thoughts?
The same thing. I think part of what I view my role as is showing our community like crumb who we are as community United Methodist Church. And so we post, like y'all said, a lot of photos. I'm grateful that I have like permission to post photos of our children. And I think this is probably a benefit. I know what talking about boundaries in this position is tricky. Mine is very blurred, and so I'll be sitting in church with my kiddos, and they will dance, and the children are dancing in front of the church, and I'm like, oh, that is good content.
Uh-huh.
And I'll be snapping photos because I know I have permission to post all the kids, and that this is what our church is. It's kids dancing in the front of worship. And I have no idea, in the moment what that will be used for. But I know this, I'm always kind of thinking, what captures who we are as community? Another photo that I love is the back of our shirt has our logo on it. And I got the homecoming parade and a few of our folks wearing the shirt from the back. So you can't even tell who anybody is, but it's our downtown. It's downtown Chrome. I posted it right after this is the homecoming parade, and building that community and showing this is who we are. We go to the homecoming parade together and we cheer on our town. And so that's not there are spiritual components of what we're posting. There is a theological framework for what we post. But right now, as we are in this kind of growing season and kind of figuring out who we are, a lot of what we do is just, this is who we are, and you have a place here. And inviting them into, come sit with us at the football game, come, when getting that word out. And so that's a lot of what I do, is just, this is who we are, and here, I'll save you a seat.
Awesome. Well, the flip side of community, and I know probably the thing that keeps those of us who work on social media up late nights, how do you handle negative comments? What is your line for that?
For us, we don't have a ton of negative commentary. Occasionally, there's a person who says, why are we focusing on this? And we should be doing this. They're starving children, all this. We have the standard blocked words if someone tries to post something with certain keywords that automatically doesn't make the post. But I do kind of use the hide comment. In Facebook and Instagram, there's a way that you can hide a comment so that the person who wrote it still sees it, but no one else does. So then they still believe that they've been heard. And then we don't inspire negative engagement.
Yeah, we're the exact same. I keep saying that, but it's true.
If it works,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah,
I always, if I get a little fired up in my mind, I'm like, okay, grace first. But I definitely, they have very rarely happened. And when they do happen, it's usually through a DM and not through a comment.
that's good.
But when they have happened, I mean, I can't even count on my hand, maybe twice or three times over the course of my time here. I've used the hide comment because it's been a situation where, they just kind of throw out a remark, but you can tell that they're not trying to start something.
Yeah.
And whenever, if I've noticed, whenever, they haven't happened often, but when they have, and I've gotten a DM privately from what is obviously not a bot account and is a human asking, why aren't you talking about this? Or why didn't you mention this? I always approach it very tactfully and kindly and intentionally, whether it's, something that I can answer myself, or I may ask, save it and ask for a pastor's assistance when the work week starts, if it's over the weekend. But they've always resolved almost immediately within my initial reply. It's never like a dragged out issue. And we do also have some selectively blocked words as well that just automatically remove from Facebook.
Yeah.
We don't have a whole lot in this role, but I have dealt with it in the past, and y'all are nicer than I am. I think if it's like a negative, like a real negative comment that is not meant to start dialogue, okay, I'll cry about it and then delete, like burn everything down. That's kind of I won't actually do that, but you know, the pastor of my church is very interested in engaging with and having dialogue with different types of people. And if that inspires a conversation, he is willing to have that. But we don't get a whole lot of negativity, even when we post things that are maybe a little bit more out there. We have not had really any negative comments. It would keep me up at night though.
Yeah, yeah. Very good. Well, for this last question, I'm going to shift the framing just a little bit because I saw a question come through the chat. So if you're putting on the hat of imagining you are a pastor, you are a solo pastor, you don't have a communication staff, what would be your words to that pastor that you'd want them to know about approaching social media for their church? Do you want to start, Leanne? I was like, you might be the closest to this one.
I mean, I feel like this is kind of what we do. Social media is so important, and I think it is a lot easier than maybe you think it is. And consistency is crucial. Posting once when you think about it isn't going to kind of get the ball rolling. But it really doesn't have to be as complicated or hard as maybe it seems, especially if you are a smaller church without staff and resources. And I think it's very scary to delegate things. I know it's scary to delegate things as a pastor, but you can delegate some things. I would not just like carte blanche give anyone access to social media, but you can say like, hey, I saw you taking pictures at that event. Can you share them with me? Because as a pastor, you cannot be in every single place all at the same time. So delegating things like that, like taking photos and then throw it into Canva and write a few sentences, but just the consistency and the authenticity I think are most important and are really worthwhile. And kind of like we were saying at the beginning about metrics, you can't calculate an ROI on a social media post, at least not from my perspective. You have no idea what life that post will have beyond that day. And so I think it is really worth it to be consistent, have a presence, and be as active. If it's 3 posts a week, post 3 posts a week and be consistent and authentic in that.
Paige or Lisa, anything you'd add?
Well, so when I joined on with Georgetown, we didn't even have social media. It was in 2010. So I don't know. I don't have the experience to speak to that particular topic, but I would agree with what Leanne said for sure. Yeah.
I agree. I especially want to focus on, as someone who outside of the church worked with independent small one-person clients or small businesses, it's about recruiting help where you can, or asking, I guess more so, not if you're a one-person show, but if you're one person and you work with a handful of other people, like so often people write off the picture that they take and the videos that they take as, oh, it's just a little moment. It's nothing. No, tell them, just send me whatever you capture. You can set the boundary of when you look at all the text messages and emails, but then you have all these wonderful small moments captured for potential content for the future. So that was one thing is, don't hesitate to ask people to just send whatever they have, because people love to see the little moments in the pictures and videos. And then I had a handful of other thoughts, but I'll just pluck one from those thoughts. You don't need to spend hours perfecting a post, because truly, whether you're a pastor or otherwise, I feel like the real ministry happens in the replies and the DMs and the comments that we take the time to answer. And really, I feel like my role in social media is to meet people in the margins, right? So put as much intention into what I'm doing as, a pastor puts into Sunday service. because these are the moments where someone is, lying awake at 1 a.m. wondering if God sees them or they're on their lunch break. And if we treat those spaces with the same intentionality and authenticity that we do Sunday service, it stops becoming marketing and it becomes ministry. And I feel like that's where the real impact happens, regardless of what assets you have, to work with.
We just had a great question come in the
I
chat.
saw that.
Okay,
I want to
about
answer that
Facebook.
question.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if Janet, I don't know if Janet was here earlier. We have a congregation that has several 3-generation families. So we have like the preschoolers, we have the middle-aged mom, we have the grandparents all in the same pews at church. I guarantee you those young kids are not looking at Facebook. So you've got to be at least on Instagram for those younger ones. And even more so with Instagram, if you have something that's happening literally in that moment, you have to do it on the Instagram story, not in a post. The stories are the things at the very, very top that disappear after 24 hours. If you're talking about handbells in church that day, there is no reason to make an Instagram or Facebook post about that if somebody's not going to see it for 3 more days because it's not going to be relevant anymore. That's the kind of thing that needs to go in the Instagram story. Same thing with your funny videos. If you're trying to get engagement from those young people, you've got to make reels. Like they said, get in Canva. It makes it really easy. But yeah, the young kids are not on Facebook. They're on Instagram, they're on YouTube, TikTok.
Very good. Well, we are getting close to 1 o'clock. I think the last couple of questions I saw, one, people were curious if they could see your request forms. So if you're okay doing that, I can send, we can send from the conference office to the folks who registered a follow-up email with links to any of those forms.
Okay.
And I think the only other question we didn't hit was, are you using social media at all for the spiritual side of holidays? How is that showing up for y'all?
For us, I leave the theology to the pastors. I will capture, I'll capture a video during the sermon when I know our pastor is going to say something that he really wants to drive home, and I'll put that in the Instagram story, like I said. If it's a really good prayer or something like that that the pastors want the congregation to think about all week, then I'll do a post about that. But I don't elect to act as pastor on the social media.
In the same way, I just, to put it succinctly, I pull from the pastor, whether it's an upcoming sermon that I know, like Leanne said, like if we're in run through on a Thursday and I hear a quote, or I know he's focusing on a specific piece of scripture, then, I can focus on that. But I never try to speak in a realm that is not mine.
I do. I do.
You're qualified.
And I feel comfortable
Yeah.
in that. But I will say I do default to like United Methodist content. So like the posts about there was like a back to school prayer and things like that that the Horizon Texas Conference puts out. I will share or share. I'm not going to just download it and put it up as my own, but I will share or give credit. And the same goes for like the general boards, like if like for hurricane relief or the flooding, things like that, I will pull not just in terms of donating our funds, but prayers, things like that. I will default to and that's also what I would encourage other churches to do when their communication person doesn't feel as comfortable in the theological realm. We have some great stuff that's out there already prepared for you, ready to go.
Absolutely.
Or if there's like a catastrophic event or something, which unfortunately I'm always kind of, hanging out like what's going to happen. I defer to those bigger pages for just concise, insightful words on the subject.
Very good. Well, thank you all so much for giving of your time and your wisdom today. We're going to drop a few links in the chat because Paige has put together a great little, is it 10 items, best practices as they stand right now. I loved that caveat.
Yeah,
Like at
for
least this month.
October at
Yeah.
least.
So she's got those to share. And then I know Trey had already shared as well that link back to last month's Canva for Churches training in case you heard something here that you now want to go apply in graphic design. And then the last thing that we'll be adding there is just a quick 3-question survey. As I mentioned at the top, this is the second of our Lunch and Learns. We are excited to be offering these, and we want to make sure that we're sharing information that is relevant and useful and that people feel like they've spent their lunch hour well. So if you'll let us know how this one was, as well as what topics you'd like to hear about in the future. Our next will be on November 20th is the third Thursday, right there before Thanksgiving. And our topic for next month will be kind of the first steps that a church could take to owning their digital presence online. So we'll be looking at things like basic websites, Facebook, and claiming your Google profile so that when folks search for your church, what are they finding and how are you owning that? So that'll be November 20th at noon. But yes, with that, I would just offer to everyone, what I was hearing is that these posts matter. One of y'all said it's like planting seeds. And so I hope that you all have heard something today that will enable you to go plant some seeds and share your mission, share your story online. So thank you so much for spending your lunch with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.